Hi, this is Debbie, and today I'm taking a first look at Altenew's new artist grade watercolour set, which comes as 24 half pans in a metal palette. First off, let's talk packaging and product design. The box the palette comes in is beautiful, with gold embossing on the logo and gorgeous watercolour florals to decorate. Turning the box over, and again you have that lovely gold embossing on the logo, and then a little blurb about the watercolours and swatches to indicate the colours enclosed. So the blurb reads, "This gorgeous set of 24 individually wrapped half pans coordinates perfectly with our Altenew colour families. The artist grade colours are intensely pigmented with little to no granulation and blend beautifully. They are stored in a convenient metal case designed with space for your brush and a palette in the lid for mixing." Taking a closer look at the palette, and again Altenew have really concentrated on the design. I love the look of the matte purple case with light purple floral design and logo. There's a ring on the back of the palette to pop your finger through to support the palette if you're using it to paint when out and about. And then when you open the palette, there are 4 wells in the lid to act as one palette, and 8 smaller tilted wells in the flap to provide further mixing space. There's a foam piece which presumably has protected the watercolours while travelling, and then you have the 24 half pans of paint. The paint is contained in a metal tray which is removable if you'd prefer to place your half pans directly into the palette. I know some people prefer to do that. The tray slots back into the palette, and the gap between the 2 rows of paint provides a convenient spot to place a paintbrush. Zooming in so you can see how each half pan is secured in the metal tray. Each half pan has a metal piece which hooks over the paint, keeping it in place. To remove the pan, you bend back the metal clip and take out the paint. You can then replace the paint in the same way, making sure to push back the clip. I was very impressed that the name of each paint is printed on the end of the half pan. One of the first things I end up doing when getting new paints is to write the details of the half pan, and it's wonderful to have this step taken care of for me. So it's time to unwrap this rainbow of paints. Each half pan has a sticker looping from one side over the top and securing on the other. I peeled off each sticker but kept them to one side, and I'll come back to that later. Now, I do love a messy, painty, well-used palette, but equally there is a beauty in seeing all these paints neatly lined up and waiting to go. When I get a new palette, I always create a swatch card so you can really see the true colours of the paint. I paint this swatch card on a good quality watercolour card that I would normally use, again, so I'm getting a true reflection of the colours. I cut a piece of Archer's cold pressed watercolour card to size and then drew a grid of 24 rectangles in pencil. I lightly erase the pencil lines as these will become trapped into the watercolours as I paint the swatches, and I prefer not to see them. I then spritz the paints with a mini mister, and this is to reactivate the paints in preparation for using them. Using a paintbrush, I picked up colour and painted it at the top of the rectangle, washed out my brush with clean clear water, and drew the colour down over the swatch. This way you see a range of colours this paint can create. I painted every other rectangle initially, and that is so neighbouring paints didn't mix and bleed together. If you paint next to a wet swatch, the paints will move and mix together, so by painting every other rectangle I could paint freely and then dry the swatches with a heat tool before filling in the gaps. I'm going to leave this whole section of swatch painting so that you can get an idea of the colours included in the palette. This is obviously my first look at these paints, and I'm intrigued to use them more and get to know them. On first impressions, they are rich and creamy and re-wet easily. The colours are intense, which is what I like, as it is easier to dilute an intense colour than it is to try and bump one up. The package mentioned little to no granulation, and I'm finding that. I do love granulation at times, but it is one of those Marmite things. Some people love it and some people hate it. As Altenew are known for their fabulous florals, then I guess granulation isn't as appropriate a quality for watercolours intended to paint flowers. And this is a palette which is carefully picked for florals. Just look at that beautiful array of yellows through to oranges, corals, pinks, reds, purple, blues, neutrals and greens. I kept the colours in the order they appeared in the palette. You could rearrange them if you'd prefer. I wasn't sure how the layout was going to look, but actually I can see why they've placed them as they are. You have your top row of warm colours, Then you have a nook of cool blues and purple at the end of the 2 rows. On the second row you have your neutrals, which leads into your greens. So yes, I can see this to be a useful layout for these colours. I'm just finishing off painting the last few swatches and starting to look at the colours I'm drawn to. The olive green of Tropical Forest is an immediate favourite, as is the dusky blue of Cool Summer Night, which leads me on to the names. Watercolours are traditionally given names such as alizarin crimson, yellow ochre and such, but these half pans have been given non-traditional but beautiful names instead. Back to the labels I peeled off at the beginning, and the labels are printed with the names and also the pigment colours of the paints. I like to write these onto my swatches, and so I took a black pen and jotted down the details. I just wish I had beautiful handwriting like Christina Werner when I'm doing this. So there you go, a completed swatch of the new Altenew Artist Grade 24 half pan watercolour palette. This took me about an hour to do, but will be such a valuable tool as I start to use this palette and get to know the colours. I'm very excited to start painting with these colours, and you'll see them featuring in projects to come. I'll leave a link in the YouTube description to the Altenew palette that I used today, as well as a coordinating link to the blog post over at langdudadesign.com. I want to thank you for joining me today, and if you've enjoyed this tutorial, I'd be delighted if you give it a thumbs up and to subscribe to this channel. Also, if you'd like to get notified when a new video is out, don't forget to hit the bell button next to the subscribe button too. Thanks, and I'll see you next time.